podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Scouser Tommies on Anfield Index. I'm Jim Boardman, and as always, I'm with Jay Reid. And this is one that we're recording a few days after we've won the League Cup. We've won the Carabao Cup, or the Milk Cup, which would probably be a better name to give it, seeing as a lot of the people involved in the game couldn't actually drink anything stronger than that legally. I'm sure they found a way. But from what I can gather, there wasn't that much celebrating done after the League Cup win over Chelsea, because what was left of the squad had to pick themselves up and play a few days later at Anfield in the FA Cup, and they did. They played well, they won 3-0, and Liverpool are now in the quarterfinals of that with a game against the Manx. And of course, this was all just a bit of a rest from the league where Liverpool are still top. It's not, as a Liverpool fan, you can't ask for much more than what we're getting at the moment. It's been an amazing season. As sad as it is that it's going to be Klopp's last season, it's still been an amazing season. It's turning into, one that feels like it's getting better and better. Obviously, one game at a time and all that, so we'll see what comes. But this last few days has been amazing. So many young lads getting games, so many young lads making debuts and are making, getting more minutes than they have, because generally speaking, they've played games but only short cameos at times. And this is properly at the business end of the season now, and these lads are getting involved, and we needed them. We needed them at Wembley, we needed them at Anfield, and they stepped up to the task. And we've seen plenty of kids play for Liverpool over the years. Some, don't go on to make it. Some become huge names. It just depends, doesn't it? Not many become huge names. One thing I can say is I've never seen a bunch of kids playing for Liverpool looking as confident as this lot have looked. It's been, Conor Bradley was full of confidence when he started to break through. We've seen others be the same. And even at Wembley, you think, when, of all the places to be allowed to be nervous, they just weren't. And Jay, it's been heartwarming, hasn't it? Just to see, not just that we've won things, but the difference the kids are making.
Yeah. If you're referencing Wembley victories and stuff like that, there was a famous old fella who lifted a couple of trophies there who famously said, "You'll never win anything with kids." It's rattled a lot of people, but what it's done is, it's just sort of proven, as we've always said all along with this podcast, we're a city, we're a team with people who may face adversity. But what we'll do is we'll stand up and we'll give it our best shot. We said last week it would be nice and hopeful if a couple of the injured players could possibly make it back. And, there was a sort of little bit of a feeling beforehand when you see the teams, albeit, off hearing from someone else, because you cannot get a signal down at Wembley. If anyone can, be in touch with the FA and possibly, sort out the fact that the National Stadium has a severe black hole in signal, and trying to get in touch with people is nigh on impossible. So, you're sort of getting the team news via someone in the pub who's seen it on Sky Sports outside or whatever.
You're not even talking about just in the stadium either, are you? It's not.
No, this is just in Wembley. Like, this is half a mile away from the stadium. It just seems to be a signal black spot. When you're in that sort of environment where you're trying to find people, it's not ideal. It's probably the best way of putting it. But
maybe it's MI5. We just put some big blockers on because all these scouts is coming down to Wembley or something.
Yeah, well, maybe the fact that they shut all the alcohol supply in the off licenses off. Maybe they shut the signal off with them as well. Just a note to the the fact that they're trying to funnel people into bars and pubs in and around the Wembley area. But do you want a £10, fee just to get into a bar so you can buy a £7 or £8 pint, and then all of a sudden they do wonder why there's thousands of people walking around with a bag of cans, as it would be, or whatever. Because you're already being exploited for the fact of the cost of getting down there and your ticket money, that they want to exploit you even more into the bars or whatever. Just kind of sums up the South, really, in my opinion. It's not something that we'd have up here. It'd be open house, free for all. It's called a free house for a reason. But we're getting slightly distracted there. In terms of what we had, we were up against it, and we've said that we'll give it our best shot. And ultimately, had we have been on the receiving end of the result in a negative manner, I don't think any Liverpool fan would have left that stadium. First of all, without applauding, the team off. The Chelsea fans couldn't put the plastic flags in the back pocket quick enough and try and get the tube out of there. Didn't even have the time to acknowledge the efforts of what players they had there, even if they don't recognise them. But the Liverpool fans would have at least done that, and they would have left with the team and the fan base of immense pride, because that's the overall feeling I had on the day. Was like, I'm proud of this team. I'm proud to be a Liverpool fan. I'm proud of the fact that we were up against it in so many ways, and that wasn't even just the injuries. There was many other factors which we can delve into, but what we've seen on that pitch, for every player who donned the red shirt and took the pitch, and those who didn't, there's many people behind the scenes who contribute to this, and that goes down as far as the academy level, and the fact that they produced these young men, some of them probably still legally known as boys, that are able to go out there and give their all, for the club that, many of them had dads who were playing when I was younger, and you now could see yourself actually thinking, Jesus, some of these kids who are on the pitch now, I could actually be their dad, and the way the ages are working out, and that's quite frightening. But it was such an immense proud moment, and it's kind of been mocked and overshadowed by others at the fact of how Klopp said he was, possibly his biggest and greatest cup victory. When people like to just mock it, but the kind of thing is, like, it keep harking back to the flag that was in Craven Cottage in the semi-final, and just imagine being us. and then there was another one that was up there in the top of the upper tier, which was just, we win cups. And it's two very bold, Scouse, cocky statements, but factually very true. Like, other teams would love to be us. Like, you think of so many teams in the country who would love the opportunity to be at Wembley and to win a trophy. I can think of one that's obviously not too far away from where we are, which would just love a trophy. When I heard last night via people who were at the game, because I couldn't be there due to work, was the old rendition of "you haven't won a trophy since 1995," which we aim towards the Blues, which was rebranded into "we haven't won a trophy since Sunday afternoon." Just a good old humour that the cop can produce on moments like we've seen this week.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it talking to them. I saw a tweet someone put out, and it was a picture of Jayden Danns holding the League Cup, and it said, last time Everton won a cup, Neil Danns was 13 years old, was a 13-year-old schoolboy. And then it says, by the way, this isn't a picture of Neil Danns, this is a picture of his son. A Liverpool player on the pitch, his dad was 13 last time Everton won a cup, which says a lot about them, doesn't it? And you're right, they would love a trophy. They'd love to get near to a trophy. Although, I don't know, I mean, let's just quickly talk about them while we're on the topic. I mean, they must feel like they've won a trophy this week though as well. They just got given 4 points, which I think is the most points they've had in a week in a decade probably. Because the decision from the Premier League appeal board panel, whatever they're called, was that it was right. They were still guilty of what they did, and they put something like 7 or 9 appeal points in, and they got 2 of them were given as, you can have them. And so they redid the points and just took 6 off them instead of 10, which, I'll be honest, looking at the table, I already thought they were pretty safe. It would take some real sort of implosion on their part, to not be safe. But I think they've got to be safe now, which, that poor dog might even get a rest. It's that safe. It might end up being, this season just ends up being one that just fizzles out into nothing for him.
Yeah, I mean, just looking back at Everton's form guide, and unless you're partial to Amsterdam, there's a lot of red, seemingly on that form guide rather than green. But the last victory that they had in the Premier League was the 16th of December. We record today on the 29th of February, and this only comes around every 4 years, but it kind of probably feels as though Everton victories probably come around every 4 years as well. And since that time up until Saturday, they've collected 5 points. So in the time between the 16th of December and basically the weekend we've just gone at the 24th when they last played, they collected more points on Monday or Tuesday afternoon, whatever it was, when the Premier League added them back, as what they had in 2 months of football, which kind of shows just the level of football that they're operating at. But yeah, it does probably mean that they're safe. I think they're 5 points clear of Luton. And unless they're going to be slapped with another one, which is highly possible. But then it puts Notts Forest or Nottingham Forest as they want to be known as Nottingham, not Notts. We must add that. Unless they get a double whammy and they're hit with another 6 points, which if we're wholeheartedly honest with it, the 10 points did seem a little harsh, but it was just funny because it was them. Clubs have gone into administration and been docked 9 points, and as Dave always argued, they only went over by 9 or 19 million. But you break the rules, you go over the limit, It doesn't matter whether it's 1 or 100 million. So it probably was sort of a negotiation game of we'll give you 10, but really we know you're going to appeal it because that's what you're going to do, and we'll all just agree that 6 points is a fair enough, reasonable punishment, and we'll all shake hands and walk away. And given the calibre of the teams that come up, and Luton have overachieved if we're honest, but Burnley and Sheffield United are absolutely woeful. The 6 points deduction would probably be enough to see Everton survive. And look, if they finish 15th this year and they've had 6 points taken off them, regardless of that 6 points taken off them, it's better than what they achieved last year. So maybe it's worth a trophy in that regard, that you finished higher in the league even though you were taking 6 points off us. Maybe there'll be a bus parade around North Wales or something like that.
I was just thinking that on Monday when this came through, whatever day it was, I'm saying Monday, it's been a bit of a blur this week, but I can just imagine how delighted they would have been, and they're sort of hoping that, does this get us on the front of the Echo instead of that red shite and all of that. But
it was probably tactically, I'll go on, Liverpool have won a cup, just give them something, let's not have them whinging too much, give them something on a Monday afternoon. Yeah, just to cheer them up.
Yeah, there'd have been there's no more pink card left for them to have another go. I do think 6 points personally. I think if that had been imposed at the time it happened, as in that season where it happened, then where would they have been then? I'm guessing they would have gone down, which is probably the thing that needs to happen. Is that they've said they're going to do it from now on. The decisions are going to be made in the season that the sort of, you're going to get charged and you're going to get a decision all in the same season, which I think is the right way to do it. And then if it affects where you finish in the table in the season where you were up to no good type of thing, then fair enough. And maybe that's where they've got lucky as well, because I'm sure if they'd have had a 6 point deduction towards the end of last season, it would have really, it could easily have upset them to the extent that they lost even more games than they did. It just could have totally knocked them off. This time it worked as a rallying thing for them, that they all sort of thought it's us against the world. Let's all print the pink cards off. Let's try and make the most of this. Let's assume we're not going to get the 10 given back to us. And, it worked well for them. There's no saying it would have worked that way last season, but I think 6 points is probably a fairly sensible deduction in terms of if clubs keep doing it, because it's also got to be a message. I mean, to me, it shouldn't happen again. We shouldn't, Forest made the mistake this time. Everton have made the mistake 2 years running. That should be it. There shouldn't be any more clubs now doing this, because it's not like it's all done in 1 year. It's kind of evened out over 3 years as well. So you've always got the chance to have a mad year, as long as you don't have 3 mad years in a row. So it shouldn't happen again. But if it does, I think 6 points is probably valid, because that could be enough to see a team go down who was struggling, or probably the idea it was originally made for, it could be enough to stop a team that's won the league from winning the league, because generally speaking it's that tight at the top. 6 points is enough to stop someone winning the league, basically. So but league, that's not for us for now. We've got a little minute, just let's look back on cups, and we'll go back to Sunday. I was I don't know about you, when you saw the team, I was thinking, it's okay. I'm not bothered about this 11. Got some young lads in there, but the 11 that's there, they can do this. They can get a result against Chelsea, as long as we put everything into it. It's not going to be an easy game like it was last time we played them at Anfield, but we can do this, even with that team. My bigger worry was, looking on the bench, just defenders basically out of sort of known faces on the bench, was, if it's not working out for us, we need to get the game done in 90 minutes is my main concern, and ideally get it done well before the end of the 90 minutes. So I just thought the last thing we need is extra time, but that's what we got. But I honestly thought, as that game went on, there were stretches where I just don't think Chelsea, I don't know, as if they were sort of sitting back and waiting for us and just hoping a bit later on that we'd be tired and they could counter-attack us. But there was one point, I think towards the end of the 90, I think I was thinking that it felt like we were on the ropes now, and we needed that break. We needed that sort of full-time break just to sort of regroup, get some water down us, have words, manager have words and so on. But other than that, it just felt like they were just sitting back expecting us to die out, and we just didn't. We just kept going and kept going and kept going, even with the young lads who, as I just said earlier on, I think I compared it on Raw to when we played Villa in a semi under Brendan Rodgers a few years back, and we looked like we were as nervous as hell. It just took us, I don't think we did settle into the game. We just looked so nervous, so overcome by the occasion and all the rest of it, that it was weird to watch, as it was just unlike Liverpool at the time, because generally speaking we'd been so full of confidence in games. This time with the kids, you'd expect maybe a bit of that, but there wasn't a drop of it, and I just think it says so much about this whole group. Even when you're watching goal celebrations from last night's game, you see they all get on well with each other. Like, the kids are not sort of outsiders to this group; they're part of it.
I think this whole collectiveness is down. Well, a lot of it is down to Klopp, but the fact that we now have all the teams at one facility, don't we, in Kirby, or the AXA as it's known, whatever, but it'll always be known as Kirby, or the Academy is used to be known to a lot of us, and it was the Academy because that's where the Academy were, and the first team were 6 miles away or something down the road in Melwood, which doesn't actually sound to many people, you think 6 miles is nothing, but in the landscape of Liverpool, you're travelling from right towards one side of the city onto the outskirts of the other.
The lights from there to Liverpool, every set of lights is on red no matter what time of the day or night you go and how busy it is. It's like you're waiting forever at lights, aren't you?
It would take on a good journey, a good run, you're looking at 20 to 25 minutes to travel them 6 miles, which sounds ludicrous, but
on a good day as well, yeah.
Try travelling that at rush hour, you're doubling the time. You're probably taking 40 to 45 minutes to get from that area. Like, if anyone has tried to get to Anfield on a match day and tried to come via, the East Lancs or whatever, then it can be chaotic. But, the whole setup now is under one roof, sort of thing. And yes, the Academy's still there for the younger age groups, but, like the under 18s and whatever and stuff, like they're all in one facility now. So it's very possible, as harps back to the old days of like Shankly and Paisley and whatever, where if you were a player short, you just had a look over and said, "Oh, we'll have this kid off this pitch. He'll he'll step in for us, and all of a sudden, you've discovered a young talent who you've got there, and the next thing is to break him through into the team. And it sounds so simple, but it's such an effective thing to do. And we have been struck with injuries, so you just think we're a little bit light up top. So Jayden Danns was probably training with his age group, and Klopp's obviously give a phone call or whatever and said, like, we could do with a striker here to make the numbers up. And the academy coach said, well, I'll have a look at this kid. He's doing well for us. And the next thing he's rattling 2 in at the top end, and he seemingly just looks like he's been part of the squad all along. And up until last week against Luton, unless you were aware of academy football, the name Jayden Danns would mean a lot to many fans, and that goes along for so many of these lads who broke through. And we've seen debuts last night for Koumas and Nyoni, wasn't it, who come off the bench. And again, the names who, if you're au fait with what's going on in the academy or the social media, you might have seen a couple of these lads and goals that they've scored, in front of what will be a couple of hundred people at max, and probably of them couple of hundred, you'd imagine, a proportion of them is coaching team, possibly scouts from other clubs,
family,
and maybe the parents and whatever, and maybe someone's brought a dog around because they needed to get out the house for a bit and walk the dog. And then, you tossed them into a stadium of, what was it, 88,000 or something like that at the weekend, and it didn't faze them. Like, it took them a couple of minutes. Of course it did. When anyone comes on in that game, you could be the most seasoned professional, and to step on in a cup final at Wembley, in a tight game, it is going to take you a few minutes to find your rhythm. But
are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
Yeah, we hung on a little bit at the end, but Klopp made them changes right before full time, knowing quite well, the fresh legs, the enthusiasm. He had nothing to lose and absolutely everything to gain. And in the extra time period, there was only one team that did look like winning it. And, as the proof's in the pudding has come out in terms of what Pochettino said, they wanted pens. Like, only one team wanted to win it in extra time, and that was us. And we got our just rewards for that. So it's such a good feeling to win it in such a manner. Because there was sort of moments when we did have to sort of backs against the wall and rely on the Irish fella in goal and the lads who play at the back with more experience. But that's a final. You ride your luck at times, but when you get chances and opportunities, you've got to take them. And they didn't, and we did, and the way we'd done it just makes it ever so sweeter.
Yeah, I mean, there's another important thing to remember as well, I think, I don't think it's had as much attention as it should have done, and that is, we've got this squad all season that has gone thinner and thinner and thinner and younger and younger and younger, but that's just like, out of that squad, it's the 11 that go on the pitch. It's the 12th man that we always talk about, the cop or the travelling cop. And I think on Sunday's game, it was shown more than ever how much better we are in terms of supporting our team. I mean, you've just mentioned about the bit at the end where the way it comes across to me is all the Chelsea fans are streaming out there before that, it's done. I mean, and I get it. I mean, some people are going to be so downhearted they can't face it now, and I get that. Some people are going to be like that. You're not going to have every seat full of the, even if it was Liverpool had lost, you would not have every seat full of Liverpool fans right to the very, very end and the trophy list. But most, like you say, would have stayed behind to support, to applaud their team and to wish them, let them know we're still there for them, and let them know we're still there for them in the next game that comes and all the stuff that's still to come this season. And, just show that you've got your backing for them. Chelsea, as you say, it feels like, I don't know, sort of spoiled brat. It's more like, I don't know, there's some football fans who feel, I think, more like it's a product that they're going to enjoy. So it's like, I don't know, going to the cinema, it's like going for a meal or something. It's not, there's no passion in it for them for some reason. It's like, it's just all about the bragging rights and the boasting and who they can show off to with the mates at the stock exchange or whatever the next day. And that's not what we're like. It's about the passion. It's about supporting the team. Obviously, we want to win things, hence the banners. We win cups and things like that. We want to win things. We love winning things. But the way we are is we support our team regardless, and we'll stick with them right till the end. And also, during the game, we'll be louder than the opposition. That is what we want to be. And on Sunday, that just hit me. I mean, I wasn't at the game. I had to go off what was on TV. But keeping in mind that more often than not, TV companies will try and balance the sound out from the two sets of fans. Liverpool were coming across as louder all the way through the game. Chelsea have just got two songs. One's just got the word Chelsea. The other one's about Steven Gerrard. They were just weren't as loud. We were just so much louder. And that's the thing, as I was saying, with these 11 lads on the pitch and whoever they 11 are made up of, which is, changing dramatically over the course of the season, they know they've got this 12th man that's with them all the way through. And I'm sure we said we expected it. It felt like there were more of us than there were of them in the ground. And again, 100%. It's passion as well. It's not plastic flags. The flags we had were what people made themselves.
But that's one thing I noticed actually at the ground. Like, I'm fortunate enough where my position was right behind the goal, sort of thing. In amongst the what people would say is the hardcore sort of fans. Yeah. Like that's where the it's like being in the cough really, in the middle of it all, where all the songs start and stuff. But in a stadium that big, like at Anfield, songs can start at the upper ante and the upper main or whatever, and they reverberate round. But that's such a huge stadium, and the acoustics, so once it gets going, it does sort of swirl around the stadium. And yes, your hearing's a bit muffled in terms of to hear Chelsea fans at all when they're so far away. It's quite hard when you're surrounded by Liverpool fans. But at no point did I hear them. The only time I sort of noticed them was when they were waving the plastic flags. But what we did notice was when you looked up around, the Liverpool end, there's 3 tiers to Wembley, and between the tiers, it was just surrounded by flags, like proper flags, not your plastic, corporates given out by some fella in a wheelbarrow outside the ground, because that's what you get if you're a Chelsea fan. Your programme, your jelly deals and your plastic flag or something like that on the way in. These are all proper genuine flags, and we covered the whole end, upper tier, middle tier. Like there was just flags everywhere, and we counted along their end, and they had nine flags along the whole Chelsea end, and what is supposed to be 34,000 or something like that fans they brought 9 flags.
It's a long way you couldn't carry them, isn't it? They've got a long way to travel.
Oh yeah, I mean, carrying a flag across the tube must be horrendous, But we covered, any sort of space we could put a flag. We did, and again, like,
there's teams coming to Anfield visiting with more than 9 flags in the Annie Road end, isn't there? It's just
yeah. I mean, albeit they'll probably be all St George's crosses and
St.
all
George's
that.
Cross or Union Jacks with some BNP stuff on sometimes.
Yeah, the usual tripe. But at least they're trying. They're trying to create some sort of fandom. But yeah, that was one thing we noticed. But I think what you rightly refer to as good as the fan support was, that moment in extra time when I think we belted out a lay for about 3 or 4 minutes straight. And every verse, it just seems to get louder and louder and louder. And it was like, that for me was the Istanbul moments, when, it was You Never Walk Alone, and it was belted out, and it was like, we're here, which is no matter what, like 3-0 down half time, Istanbul, you're on alone out there, we've all come this way as well, and we'll make sure we do our damnness to make sure we get something at least to remember the game by. And the fact that we had put a lot of inexperience out there at this point, and it was like, well, how can we show that we're with these lads? I know we'll sing the song that we made famous in England, because it's famous in other parts of the world, but we made that song famous in England. England, as an institute of football, has got many clubs, which look to us for inspiration in terms of how to be a fan, and they won't admit it, but they do. And the biggest form of imitation, flattery, sorry, is imitation, and that's what they do. They copy our songs, they copy our sort of fandom, and no one really does it like we do, because it's often mocked. And there was times last night when the usual "where's your famous atmosphere" and "is this a library" got belted out, but what, half of our voices are still recovering from Sunday.
Where's your original songs? Are you coming here saying "where's your atmosphere" and all that? Like, why don't you make your own song up? Everyone sings that same shit song. Like, make your own song up about shit atmospheres instead of just copying someone else's.
The only I'll get to in a sec, but there's other teams who have got some originality in songs, and they will come and they'll try, but a lot of it tends to just be rip-offs of others. And there's so many clubs who, Arsenal have tried to rip off a Lay, and Wolves, and I think West Ham have had a go at it as well, and stuff like that. And when it's done proper and it's done by us, it's different class and different level. The only thing I'll have a go at, I've seen it today, about Klopp saying last night about Liverpool fans shouting "shoot" at Koumas.
Oh, we said it last week, didn't we? Just
stop it. And I had a couple of tweets back from people going, "Oh, here we go, the cop-out's trying to, police fans on how to support the club." It's not about that. It's just, it's a very, very small, narrow-minded football mentality for me. Yes, he hasn't scored a goal. He's fully aware of it. You know what I mean? But shouting "shoot," it just sounds so lower league. And then you imagine the next thing, and when the keeper's going to take the goal kick after Gomez has blammed one over the bar, they're going, "Whoa!" It's not what we do.
No, we don't want that. Yeah,
we've got a bit more class about us in terms of what we do and support. And I think Gomez will get a goal this season. I genuinely do, and it'll be, I'm hoping it'll be a Company-esque. A couple of years ago when he smashed one in from 35 yards to sink our hearts and win the league for City. I don't think he'll be doing it from 35 yards, but it'll be a goal that comes at a crucial moment in a crucial game. But I think it's just gonna hit him. I can see a corner comes in, Van Dijk heads it back across, and it's sort of it's Gomez on the leg, and it goes in because he's redirected it ever way towards the goal. Or a sort of a tapping scenario where a ball falls and he swings a leg at it and it goes in. I think Koumas scored one like that earlier on in the season, and that's when the ultimate let-off will be. That's when it will happen. None of this, shoot from 35 yards and he smashes one into nearly the upper tier of the Annie Road when, it's that high up these days. If he's doing well to get one up there, but that's the only thing we need to sort of jip off as Liverpool fans, because we're better than that.
It is, and I mean, I can kind of say it, right. I remember this happening at football matches like decades ago, that you'd have this sort of stuff, and it'd usually be a very sarcastic shoot about a player who never scores goals when you're already 4-0 up or something, and it was an occasional thing. And that's the other part to it. It's like everyone thinks they're funny, but jokes stop being funny when you've heard them over and over and over and over and over again. And that's just going more and more and more. I just don't, just have a word with yourself. Just have a listen to yourself and have a think about what you're doing. And I agree. I mean, I think if Gomez scores a goal, it won't be that far away. It's going to come. It might be one of the most vital goals of the season, but the chances are it'll be off his arse or something after a bit of a scramble from a corner or something. No one will have a chance to say shoot. And will they still keep saying it after that? I don't remember us saying even that about Rob Jones. I mean, it's going back a while. Maybe we did. I don't remember us doing that for him.
The only time I remember it, sort of being half funny, was Carragher's final game, and he smashed one against QPR off the post. He carried the ball from roughly the halfway line and got to about 30 yards out, and it was like, shoot, go on, have a shot, and he did, and he did the post. And it was like, oh well, that was nearly in, and it was just sort of it wasn't the whole ground. Oh, shoot.
Yeah,
it was more of a go on, have a shot, go go on, we dare you. Like, it wasn't sort of a collective, we want you to shoot. It was like, go on, we dare you to do it. And he did, and, you know, he nearly scored. But, you know, that was sort of the sarcasm thing, where now it's bordering on very much desperation for me.
Yeah, wasn't there a spell as well where Xabi Alonso would sort of get the ball in the centre circle and we'd have like shoot. But, you know, again, no one really meant
from the halfway.
Yeah, no one meant shoot. It was just a joke, you know. Just a little joke, nothing else. It's just, I don't know. It just feels like when you're watching someone else's club and you laugh at them. Now it's us. It's just some of us. I just totally stop, and it's getting louder, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was annoying enough when you're watching on TV and the commentators instantly say, Joe Gomez has never scored for this. Shut up, we know. Talking of commentators, last night's TV commentator, co-commentator, I know Guy loves him, but it was Ali McCoist. And I can't think, Sam Matterface. And it's just like, God, it's like, you know, if you're ever trying to watch something on TV and you've got visitors that come round and you're trying not to, like, I don't know, you try not to be ignorant, but they know that you want to watch this thing on TV that you need to watch and it's live or whatever. And then they just, you know, nattering away at the side of you all the way over the top of the whole thing. And you think, for God's sake, shut up. It was like that, but it was the commentators. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not normally like that. If there's something on TV and we've got visitors, I will pause it, switch it off, do without it or whatever. But, you know, every so often, you just get that, don't you? And just people like, just shut up, I'm trying to watch this. Except they were on the TV. And the thing that winds me, I think, the most about Ali McCoist is every single thing that happens is followed by should have scored, has to score, needed to do it this way, needed to do it that way. He's the expert on everything that's already happened. It started to wind me up. But the game itself, I mean, primetime TV, I wonder if ITV were a bit gutted when they saw the lineup as well. You know, ITV1, primetime TV, Liverpool match on TV, just won a cup, and it's basically the kids. I don't know. I think if they were thinking that way beforehand, I think they got another good game. I mean, I didn't have the high heart rate notifications that I got on my watch on Sunday, but and that's the other thing as well. I'll say this: Sunday, you know, you're playing against a team that on paper is decent, a team that's much better than it has been. It must be much better than it has been. The collective individuals are better than what the whole group's become, but. So, you know, you're going to have your heart in your mouth at times, especially at 0-0, especially when the VAR are ruling out goals for reasons they don't rule out the same sort of goal 3 days later for Man United. You know, you wonder what's going to happen. But I would say, like, against Southampton, even though they had chances, I didn't remotely feel worried. I thought, we've got this. And it feels weird. It's not very often I get that way because I'm a bit too much of a pessimist at times. Like, I'm a hopeful pessimist. You know, I don't sort of sit back and arrogantly think we're going to win games because I know what we're like and we can mess things up. But it felt again, same pattern last night. 20 minutes, first 20 minutes, give them a bit of a chance. Whatever happens, first 20 minutes, nothing much going from us. Then after that, we just kind of start sorting things out. I mean, we didn't have a shot on target till right near the end of the first half. But I don't know. I think, I just, even like with Quiz, I think he had everything covered. You know, they hit the post once, but even that, I thought, well, I think the goalie had it covered. And again, let's mention Kelleher in goal. I mean, I think we're going to have a job to hold on to him because he's proven in this little run he's had that he's too good to be sitting on a bench every week.
Yeah, I think, yes, well, last night's game was kind of very reminiscent of Sunday, probably 75 minutes onwards till the end of extra time in terms of, you know, on Sunday we did look a bit gassed, and we were running on empty, and rightly so. You know, like we basically had to go to the well and keep digging. In some cases, you know, you think of the likes of Diaz and Elliott who could barely walk by the time the game had finished. But you know, we pushed on, and you know, I'm kind of thinking like the 75-minute mark on Sunday where Chelsea had a couple of chances, you know, and Kelleher, you know, kept us in it. You know, a couple of big saves, none more so than the one-on-one versus Gallagher, which was very Alisson-esque.
Yeah.
And I've often been a little bit critical of Kelleher in terms of his stature within the goal. He doesn't feel as imposing as Alisson, and it's very hard to be as imposing when you know, not Alisson Becker.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do feel as though Kelleher, for a keeper, can make himself small in terms of how he presents himself, how he holds himself, how he carries himself. And at times he can rush out, and sometimes he can appear small, where Alisson, can appear a lot bigger than what he actually is, and maybe it's a confidence thing. I'd imagine possibly so, that, he's had this run in the team in the last few weeks, and, listening to Guy, Lisa and Carl last night on Road this morning when I was walking the dog, and they were saying, it's something that's never really afforded for goalkeepers. A player can come back from injury or can, get a little run in the team and say, he's not match fit, so we can allow him 2 or 3 games, to sort of find his form and whatever. But with a keeper, it's, you're tossed in and you're expected to perform. And in the case of him, he can be tossed in for the game and we don't see him in for 4 weeks, 5 weeks or whatever, because he mainly features in the cup, which, it's got to be really hard. But as this little run of games has gone on for him, you think back to probably when it started with Fulham in the semi-finals, and he was questionable a couple of times, and you think, well, he's just finding his feet, isn't he? And he's just getting in, as Klopp's favourite word, he's getting in rhythm. Yeah. And thank God he is in the rhythm, because he saved us, on more than one occasion across the 2 games that we've had. And I do feel as though, Ali McCoist if he could have put a Southampton shirt on and had Ricky Lambert on the back, he would have tried last night. And he probably would have resembled a Ricky Lambert performance at times at Anfield had he had done so. But he couldn't cream over Southampton anymore, because it felt like he was desperate for the cup upset, because, as you say, the stellar Liverpool team went out and the opportunity knocked for Southampton to get a result at Anfield and shocked the Carabao Cup holders and stuff. And as it turned out, we sort of had a few wobbly moments, and, players playing out of position, players playing the first game, players playing with other players in the likes of midfield who've never played in midfield before. It was disjointed. And there was a lot of factors. And had we gone in at half-time 1-0 down, there'd been no complaints from the Anfield faithful, because, we were a bit all over the place. We rolled our luck, but we got our chance and we took it. And then what we did in the second half, as I said earlier on before we started recording, I only seen snippets of the game while I was in work. But from what I did see, the second half was mainly played, in the Southampton end of the field, in terms of we were on the attack a lot.
Yeah.
We created chances, and arguably could have had more on the night. And
hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own Two-Footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m, Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We brought a lad off the bench who had nothing to lose in Jayden Danns, and, puts one away, kind of Dalglish-esque against Bruges, like running through and the keeper dinks him nicely. And then, finds us in a Diogo Jota in terms of follow-up his shots, steam past the defender and right foot home. And, these things are really positive to see. And, it gives you that little bit of, again, real pride moments in the fact that had we have lost last night, nobody would have had anything bad to say about Klopp, about Liverpool, because, backs against the wall in terms of what we've got available, just come off a really exhausting cup final, and a hugely young and inexperienced team. You use that in both methods of the word. Young as in like Harvey Elliott is still 20 but playing over 100 games, but at the same time, Conor Bradley's the same age and he's playing as 16th appearance or something for Liverpool in in all competitions.
And all those numbers that they give as well, it's how many appearances he's had. A lot of them as well have only had like 10 minutes subs at the end of a game and thing, haven't they? It's not
subs.
Yeah.
Like, do the minutes on them, like it feeds into what narratives and arguments people want to put out there, like the whole I had it Monday morning, you won it with kids, did you? Yeah. Well, how come your average age was older than Chelsea's? I mean, that's because we got, 3 lads in the 30s who started the game, in Endo, Van Dijk and Robertson, and then we finished the game with Van Dijk and Endo on the pitch, plus Joe Gomez, who's late 20s, and a couple of others who skewed it. So, had Thiago Silva been playing for Chelsea, I'm sure they would have skewed the figures in other ways. But, facts and stats to back up your argument, whatever, go on appearances. But, as I say, it's such an immense pride feeling of what we've got. And I'm sort of sat here today thinking, is Darwin Núñez going to get in the team at the weekend if he's fit? Yeah. Where's Mo Salah playing? I mean, Mo Salah's going to probably come in if he's fit, because Harvey Elliott is 5'9", but looks like he's 5'2" at the moment, because he's run himself into the ground that much.
He had little legs to start with, but I'm sure his legs are like at least 6 inches shorter now.
He's got like the Jordan Pickford syndrome on his legs, hasn't he? His legs seem to be getting shorter as it goes on. But there's genuine questions now, like thinking, yes, obviously first team players are likely to come in, but we might still be a bit light on the bench. But if we've seen some of the names who we've seen over the last 2 games on the bench, the likes of McConnell, the likes of Clark, we're overlooking, and I think it was mentioned actually, by Ali McCoist last night, Quansah's only in his first season at Liverpool at a first team level. And
Ali McCoist, I wouldn't have heard of him this time last season. Ali McCoist had never heard of his name.
And it was either, I'm going to say it was McCoist, it could have been, Sam Shut Your Face or whatever his name is. I'd said, and we got the experience of Quansah and Van Dijk at the back. And hang on a minute. Quansah's experience, he's played 20-odd games. So, he was playing for Joey Barton at Bristol Rovers last season. It doesn't get much worse than that. The lad has literally broken through this year. So, tagging him with experience just is laughable. But if Quansah was to start at the weekend, we'd have no fears. If Bradley was to start the weekend, we'd have no fears. If McConnell or Clark are going to get a space in midfield, we'd have no fears. If we were really short up top, and you've got Luis Diaz one side and, an 80% Mo Salah the other of Jadon Danns up top, you've got no fears, because that's what these lads have given us. They've given us a pride and a feeling of, they'll go out there and they'll give everything for the shirt, because that's what we'd do. If ever we had the opportunity in life to don that shirt and play for Liverpool, you'd give everything, and that's what they're doing, and that's what we'll always ask for.
Yeah, and I think we'd do it because we're Liverpool fans, born and bred, and you do everything you could. I mean, a few people have said that to me. If you do everything, but the thing is, the other bit to add to that is the Klopp's getting them to play. So even the lads who aren't lifelong Liverpool fans, it's the way Klopp just gets them to play so well. He's an amazing motivator. It's mad to think we had to get that external guy, that chimp paradox, whatever his name is, that Dr. Steve Peters a few years ago to kind of motivate the squad. Klopp is an amazing motivator. I don't know what he does. I don't know if he's. I think it's just a natural thing from him. I think he's just naturally a brilliant motivator, and he gives people belief. And I agree. I think these young lads, honestly, if we've got to last game of the season, I don't know if it's going to be the last game the way things move around, but say we make it to the Europa League final, last game of the season, everyone, no more games to worry about. Everyone can give everything to this one game and have the summer off. You'd kind of expect, if everyone's fit, for it to be like Mo and Diaz and Núñez up front. You'd expect it to be Ali in goal. You'd expect it to be Konate and Van Dijk in the middle, and so on and so forth. Trent right back, Robbo left back, whatever. But any single one of those positions, and the ones that missed out in midfield, any single one of those positions, I feel like we've got decent options in every single position now that we maybe didn't think we had before. I mean, we might come on to about something else Klopp said in a minute. When we sort of started the season, we probably could have all picked a decent starting 11, but the worry was going to be, how were we going to get through the next few months. How are we going to cope as, the pitches get heavier and the games get thicker and faster? How are we going to cope with all of that? And I suppose if you're being really critical, you might say, well, we were lucky the kids were okay, weren't we? I don't think that's the case. I think Klopp maybe knew how good these kids were, and that if it got to a point where, like in that COVID season, when you're going through your first team and you're having to find players to move out of position. I mean, this injury crisis is worse, I think, than the COVID time, but we've got so much more quality that can come in. Even Joe Gomez playing in midfield, I mean, there was a little bit of criticism about it, but I don't think he's ever played there before. I don't remember him playing there before in that position. He did okay, and no doubt he can do better. And what he did well as well was he was like an old head amongst the young kids, just giving them the encouragement that they need as well. Got Van Dijk. I mean, the thing I was thinking about is it got all these kids. Van Dijk's like the dad, and then Klopp's like the granddad on the side. But they're all just playing with such enthusiasm. And as you say, we've got options in every single position. I don't think Klopp would say to Darwin, you can't start because Jadon's beat you to it at this stage. But what I think it definitely does is, if Darwin's sort of like 80% fit, there's not going to be, we better just play you with 80% fit than Darwin because we're so short of players. It's not going to be like that. It's not going to be, and there was an element of that last night. I mean, McAllister was on the bench, clearly running himself into the ground as well at the weekend. He was on the bench, came on later because I think Klopp knew with what he had that he could afford to do that. And I think this might be what happens now as the season goes on, maybe, that we might see some of the young lads keeping the places when there's an older head on the bench who's almost ready to go. And Klopp thinks, well, let's just ease them in. And that's another thing that it's given us because they're all homegrown. They're not going to count as numbers in the squad. When you've got to have so many homegrown players and stuff, the young players, and even when they get over the certain age, they'll still be classed as homegrown. So it just gives us so many options. But then the summer's going to come and we're still all going to get caught up in the hype over the transfer window. Even though we don't know who's going to be the sporting director that's going to be looking after it, if there's going to be a football director as well as a sporting director, who the manager's going to be that the players are going to be bought for. And Klopp won't be around for the next transfer window, but he had something interesting to say last night, didn't he? Which I think was a message to the people who we did it to some extent, but there's people who just lose it over the transfer window.
Yeah. Don't forget on these lads, and he's right. We're going to need, realistically, between now and the end of the season, we're going to be playing every 3 days or 4 days, depending on how fixtures pan out. We've progressed in the FA Cup, which now means the derby is sadly moved from Paddy's Day to somewhere later on in the season, which, will delight them. Delight the Evertonian faithful that, they've got to play us when possibly we might have Jota back, we might have Alisson back, we might have Trent back. Salah, Szoboszlai, Darwin could all be fit and firing. You never know. Thiago might even get a place on the bench, or Basetic might revive himself from his sabbatical year or whatever he's been doing.
I feel like Thiago's moved his way down the pecking order now, though, as well, mad.
So, that game, could be slotted in, at some mad point, 3 days before the last game of the season, something like that. You just don't know. No. We haven't even touched yet on the Europa League, which starts again next week. So we're going to need these boys, and yeah, I agree. We might be looking at times where let's just look ever so slightly ahead next week to the Europa League, and the fact that we've got Sparta Prague, which I imagine the travelling cop will be absolutely buzzing with. You can't find a much nicer city to go and visit than Prague in Europe for an away day.
Yeah. And there's cheap beer if you know where to look, apparently, as well. So.
Oh yeah. I've only done a fleeting visit to Prague, but I'm definitely going back. But we played them on Thursday night at 5:45 UK time. We touched on this last week because we were speaking before the draw was made, and we wanted a handy tie in terms of travel time.
Yeah.
We didn't want to be going to Karabakh in Azerbaijan, or somewhere way out west or east or whatever. So a couple of hours, they'll be back in Liverpool just after midnight or something like that, on Thursday/Friday morning. So at least he can get get back home and have a recovery day Friday, and they got Saturday, and then they got Sunday against City. But squad management is going to come into play, and if it's the case that, you know, McConnell has to start against Sparta Prague, so Alexis can rest and be on the bench and maybe just do half an hour at the end, or, you know, as you mentioned, with Dans and Nunes, or, you know, Kwanzaa has to come in, so Canate can step out
and
for the
Canate
game.
can have half a game each like last night,
Yeah, you know, if we've just got to be really smart and do that, then we're absolutely fine with it, because we feel confident in the lads' ability to step in, and, you know, we have a lot of injuries, but we've got players who can step in, and, you know, we've not got two players for every position, but what we've got is we've got an option. We've got an option pretty much for every position, or we can juggle things about. And yes, we might be a little bit thin in experience and whatever, but what these have proved over the last few days is they can do it, and it's going to be about that. It's going to be about squad management and ensuring we can get through, because this could be a memorable season on so many levels. You know, and people will moan, oh, you know, Liverpool could play 60 odd games this season, but if you're not happy to play 60 odd games, then, you know, go and support Crystal Palace, who'll probably play 42 games a season, and that'll be the 38 in the league and maybe a couple in the domestic cups, and that'll do them. You know what I mean? We're here for the 60 game season, as much as it might be a slog. If you're playing 60 games a season, you're probably getting to finals, and you're probably winning a trophy or two along the way. And that's what we're all about. So, you know, it's a case of just get on board and enjoy the ride, because that's what we're here for. I think, you know, it's relentless. It can be hard work, you know, as much as it can be for the fans and the players, but the rewards at the end and the memories that you create, I think, you know, you can't put a price on them.
I know, and I think as well, you know, playing too many games and stuff, it is. I get what people say with that, and I mean, it's obviously knackering for the coaching staff, because they don't rotate themselves up. Well, Klopp occasionally sticks Pep out on the press conferences and stuff, but, you know, on the whole, it's sort of all those games are playing in season, but, you know, you've got to look at the start of the season with that as a possibility. And I think if you can draw on your youth ranks, then it means you're not going to go spending loads of money on players who, if you have a bad season, might not play many games. Because obviously, you know, if we'd have gone out this summer and bought enough players so that we didn't have to use a single academy lad this season, for example, bought all of those players, we'd have probably been in trouble for the whatever they call FFP nowadays. We'd have been in trouble in terms of squad numbers, how many you can have in squads and things, because all these young kids count as extra. But also, we could well have ended up where they were all sitting kicking their heels all the second half of the season, because, you know, you can soon be out the League Cup. You can go out the FA Cup straight away like Arsenal did against us. You might not make it into the second half of the season in the European games. And all of a sudden, these extra players are there, and you're playing once a week, and you think, man, you know, we didn't need them. But you've got to be prepared that could happen, that you're going to need them. And I think having the youth players around, for us this season, it's been like out of necessity as much as anything. But it's been great to have them. And I just think, you know, maybe that's something that, rather than moaning about the number of games you played, maybe what football needs to do is say, right, we're not going to change those. Let's be realistic. They're not going to reduce the number of games. I still think it's mad that they've given us like a week off, or, you know, a sort of tie match week off in the Europa, because we did so well. We didn't need to play in that last round. I'm surprised that happened, because that's a game missing. But they're not going to reduce the number of games, because it's all revenue. You know, how many games you can sell to Sky for the Premier League, and to BT for the Premier League, and for broadcasters around the world for the Premier League. They're not going to suddenly say, yeah, we'll pay you the same amount of money if you reduce the league to, say, 16 teams, and so you can play fewer games. They're not going to want to pay as much money, because they aren't going to be able to show as much football. The League Cup, it's not a massive amount of revenue, but my God, can you imagine if we hadn't had that? I mean, what we would not have had Sunday if someone had decided, right, we're going to stop any European teams playing in Europe. You don't need to be in the League Cup anymore. You know, we're going to drop it. Too many games. For the sake of saving you probably half a dozen games in a whole season. There are a lot of games. It is mad. Even being a fan, even doing fan media at times, it can be mad. You know, no sooner if you got over one game and you're prepping for the next, you can imagine what it's like for the players. But that's the reality. We know that's the case. We've just got to accept it. Players have got to accept it. Fans, managers, everyone. And then, if ever there's an argument for keeping the same number of games, but maybe putting something in place to allow more youth players to get involved, this is it. I mean, there was talk a few years ago when we were increasing the number of subs on the bench, to put a rule in place that at least 2 of them have to be, academy age players.
Graduates.
Yeah, exactly. Which I don't think is a bad thing to do. There's no harm in it. Even if they don't end up getting games, it's still getting match experience. And if people do it right, then there might be games where they get on for the last 5 minutes and just have a bit of a taste. But the players we had last night, some of them have not had a taste. There was debutants there. Some of them have had the taste. But the thing is, they've been in and around this first team. And there's just so many players. It's just, I can always remember Pepe Reina didn't get involved much with Spain, but he was considered a vital part of the World Cup squad because of what he did. And a lot of the young players have had that this last few days, seeing the more experienced players still being involved. Some of them in boots or on crutches or whatever, but all of them involved in some way and being around, especially at Wembley. And I think one of the many, many good images from Sunday, I don't know if you saw it, the video was meant to be Pochettino with his head in his hands, but then behind him you've got Dom and Darwin just hurtling over any obstacle in the way to get on there and celebrate, and they are injured.
Well, I was trying to find if there was any sort of odds going on Darwin to run the Grand National, given the way he was hurdling them fences and barricades. He wouldn't do a bad running job around Aintree, but just on the games, the amount of games of maybe one thing they could look at, and it might actually for once come as a blessing, is international breaks. We've got another international break in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe a blessing for us in terms of, it'll be a week or so without football domestically where we could possibly maybe get a player or 2 back, in terms of fitness. But England have got an international versus Brazil friendly, international friendly versus Belgium 3 days apart. And this is on the back of a couple of friendlies last year against Australia and Scotland. To me, we all know our feelings on international football and the England team especially. It's pretty much meaningless. So there is no need for those friendlies to be played right now, in the middle of the season when players are, at times running on empty.
Yeah.
Why not allow that week for, there'll be no games played that midweek or something. Let's just say, there'll be no European competition football, no domestic cups. It's literally, you'll play Saturday, Sunday, and you'll play the following Saturday, Sunday, and it allows a good 5-6 days of recovery time for players, managers, coaching team, to all possibly have a day or 2 off and, rest and recuperate, because then, for those teams who are chasing numerous cups like we are, the running is relentless. And even then, after that, the season finishes.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Domestically, in the middle of May, but we could then continue on up until I think it's the 23rd or something like that. The Europa League final is, and then the Champions League final is the weekend after that.
Yeah,
but straight away the following week, England, Bosnia in a friendly, England, Iceland in a friendly. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously I'm just referencing England because that's the nation that we're unfortunately living within at times.
Technically.
But all our players, or the majority of our players, will be called up for international duty because, they represent good international countries. And you're pushing them to the brink, and then, shortly following that, there's the European Championships and whatever. It is relentless.
Yeah.
But these international breaks in the middle of the season, I've not missed them. It might come as a blessing, as I say, in terms of injuries, but it's not needed. England don't need to be playing Brazil other than the vanity of, the FA putting a few quid in their coffers.
Yeah, chance for London fans to boo any Liverpool players that might be playing. That's the usual thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and hopefully there isn't. When it could be a blessing that Koumas Jones has got injured and might not feature, and hopefully, Joe Gomez doesn't go. Trent Alexander-Arnold isn't going to go for England. Alisson isn't going to play for Brazil because he'd get a hell of abuse if he was on the Brazilian team just because he plays for Liverpool. But it'll give 88, 90,000 so-called fans to go and display a different type of fandom in the national stadium rather than what the 35, 40,000 Liverpool fans that did at the weekend.
They might as well play Legends games if they want to just make money out of stuff, in between games. Like they might as well, like Liverpool have the Legends game on, don't they? Which we talk about because Sven is going to be part of the management team for Liverpool. If you want to fill a stadium and you think you can get some Legends, England against Scotland or something, England against France Legends, you put some work in, do some organising. You'd probably sell a fair few tickets for that for people who are interested. And the real players, like the current players, can have a week off.
Yeah, they wonder why, if ITV had any complaints about the level of what our squad was put out last night, in terms of level of reputation or whatever, they might look at the fact that, the players are being flogged within their lives and we're getting injuries. And yes, some of it can be blamed at the fact that we may have rushed a player or two back too soon. And maybe that is why we're being extra cautious in the likes of, if you've seen Darwin's display at Wembley, you would have thought he was featuring last night, and Zabos gave an interview in his own national media and said, he felt like he was ready, but the medical team have held him back, and Mo Salah seemed to be, looking okay. I mean, less can be said for Trent Alexander-Arnold, who looked like he was doing a Stone Cold Steve Austin knee brace impression, and Koumas Jones, who looked like he'd give his crutches to Gravenberch. Because
we were trying to work that out. It looked like he did, didn't
he? Yeah, we must have shares in them protective boots by now. The kit man must have a suitcase full of them protective boots going around.
We have another coach just to carry all the medical gear, I think, now.
It's ridiculous, but, the players are under so much pressure, to play so many games that, it's highly unlikely that you're going to make it through a season without, many players breaking down. So, the TV companies are just as bad, and the national organisations and whatever, the greed of wanting the players in so many different places and competitions is killing the game. And it does sound like you're banging the drum like Klopp often is, and people will just say he's moaning and whatever, but you then cannot have a go at Klopp for fielding teams like he had to in the last few days, because he literally has no other options. His hands are well and truly tried.
Yeah, and I think, on top of those national organisations, you've got FIFA saying they want to make it the World Cup every 2 years, which if they got away with that, that UEFA would want to switch the European Championship so they were on the alternate years, the intervening years. And so every summer would be a tournament, a major tournament that in a lot of ways would become diluted, because instead of being this for all the age I am, there haven't been that many World Cups. It's like we're just on about however many 29th of February's you get. You get as many of them as you get a World Cup. Basically, you just so it makes it more of a thing that you've won the World Cup, you miss out. You've got 4 years to wait till the next one, and as a player, quite often you think a player's still pretty much in the prime, and then you realise that by the time the next World Cup comes around, they might be out of the prime by then. They might not be part of the squad. So they're trying to devalue it, I think, anyway, by trying to do that. But, I think I'm agreeing with you. Friendlies, mid-season, why do you need them? You don't need them. If you've not got a tournament to play in, organised tournaments, if you've not got an actual tournament, actual qualifying for a real tournament, which still annoys me, but I can kind of get why they do them. You don't need the friendlies. Can you imagine? Just can't imagine it, can you, in the league that Klopp sort of says, as a word with like, I don't know, any other manager in the division and says, why don't we have a friendly? Or as a word with like Ajax or someone and says, let's do a friendly because I want to just try a few things out. I want to try a few different players. I don't want to risk it in a real game though, so I just want to try it out in a friendly. Like, it just doesn't happen. You've got pre-season, which isn't about trying things out as much as it is about getting players fit. A little bit about trying things out, but most of it is just about getting players fit and preparation for the full season. After that, if you want to try things out, you try it out in a real game that matters, that you could lose points from or you could go out of a competition from. If international managers aren't capable of doing that, they shouldn't be international managers, though. It's just time to bin the friendlies, and if that means that players get a rest, so be it, because it's not going to do them any harm. The other thing as well, TV companies quickly, Klopp, always saying to them about making us play at 12:30 when we've just had a game earlier on in the week. I mean, there's just so little amount of time to prep for that, so little time to recover. That's another reason why we did so well on Wednesday in the FA Cup against Southampton, that, we'd got back, I'm guessing early hours of Monday morning, maybe quite late on Monday. I think Klopp said he didn't even have any time to train properly with them to go through anything. So everything, all the training, all the prep for the Wednesday game was basically sort of theoretical, talking about it to them rather than showing them on the training field. So the games are really tight, and then we keep getting these 12:30 games on a weekend that makes it even worse. It gets to a point for the players to get through. They're going to end up, you can just imagine it's going to get to a stage where they start having to take performance-enhancing drugs. The reason I'm mentioning that, I don't know if you've seen it, Paul Pogba's been banned from football for 4 years.
Is that including the last 3 or 4 years he's not played? Was that a suspended sentence?
Yeah, he says the suspension is backdated to when he was charged. But I was at first I thought he was going to say it's backdated to include his time with Manchester United.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking. Obviously, I seen the news earlier on, but when you reference the fact that a World Cup comes around every 4 years, and players might not be what they used to be in 4 years' time, and you think back to World Cup when France won it. Obviously, the 4 year cycle was slightly skewed with the Qatar World Cup, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But when France won it in what would be 5.5 years ago, something like that now. He was 5.5, nearly 6 years actually. He was a key figure for the French national team. And arguably at the time, was one of the best midfielders in the world when he could be asked. And you think like the dramatic fall off, he had the last World Cup against Argentina and obviously in Qatar and whatever. Pogba weren't really a feature for the French team. There was a new crop of French youngsters that were dominating midfield, and football careers are short, but this fella seems to have really taken the mick in terms of maximising his financial gain and profit, but making his career at the top as very short as possible. I think he's probably condensed it all into about 2 or 3 years of decent football at Juventus. And will there be a time when other players or ex-players maybe subsequently revealed that there was performance enhancements taking place? Because there would be questions raised and eyebrows sort of Carlo Ancelotti raised in directions of other teams who seemingly recover players a lot faster than others, is probably the best way of putting it, without opening a huge rabbit hole. If you want to have a look at who we're talking about, just have a look at the fixture list and who we've got after Forest.
Yes, yeah, we've got to be careful what we say, obviously, but yeah, there's definitely questions and stuff, isn't there? And if anything, the way Liverpool's injuries have gone this season, though, the accusation we've had performance decreasing drugs in terms of fitness, but but performance wise, definitely not. There's been some amazing performances from Liverpool, but the injuries we've had, there's just so many different injuries, and I think it just says a lot about how we play. We play our football at 100 miles an hour, and you're going to get hurt, aren't you, if you try running around at 100 miles an hour. Also, just while we're thinking about transfer windows, sort of just mentioned them. There's nothing to say Liverpool can't spend money this summer, but they've just released the annual financial account. So they go up to last year, to 2023, June, end of May, I think it is, May 31st, 2023. We were just having a quick talk about it before we came on, weren't we? That the headline on the club website is LFC announces record commercial revenues. And they did the commercial revenue went up by 25 million. But it's kind of been offset because media revenue went down by 19 million. Match day went down by 7 million. There was also a rise in administrative costs, wherever they are, 17 million. And in all, the overall revenue remained the same at 594 million, which is a hell of a lot of revenue in a year. That's such a lot of money coming in. It's crazy money that we don't really understand. But I think the reason that the media revenue will have fallen and match day revenue would have fallen is because we didn't have a good season. And also that's in comparison to the year before, when we did have a good season. We made it all the way to Paris and, we won 2 trophies and we were basically never off the telly. The year after, we didn't have a great season, didn't qualify for the Champions League, didn't get as many games on TV, and obviously didn't stay in the Champions League as long. It's definitely not something to panic about. And to me, it still sounds like this is a club that's being run the right way. I mean, we might not always be happy with FSG. They've definitely made mistakes. But I think the main job we would have asked them to do when they came in, if we could have asked them one thing to do, it would have been to make sure that we can stand on our own 2 feet as a club. And I think we're definitely doing that.
Yeah, I mean, much things can be said about them, can't it? But one thing that can't be knocked is, they've dragged us into the 21st century and more in terms of off the field performance. And a lot of people looked with envy at United through the 90s and how they escalated, the marketing and the off-field commercial aspect of the game, and they basically went streets ahead of everyone. They become their own force, but other teams have caught up. Other teams have caught up by fair or foul means, but we're doing it in an organic, proper way. And you would argue that we've always been a huge team worldwide, but we are probably now, one of the top 3 teams, I'd say, if you went around the world and dropped the Liverpool shirts and wear, like, I'd imagine most people would recognise it. And what we're doing and what Klopp's done as well, with the team is, it's one thing having such commercial success off the field, but it goes hand in hand with what you're doing on the field. If you're playing that well, your commercial entity becomes even bigger. One thing I will just pick out from the figures, and there'll be no doubt, numerous podcasts across numerous platforms, and I imagine Mo Chatras will probably do an in-depth money talks on AI, which usually goes on for about an hour and a half, but it's an hour and a half of very good listening. So if that drops in the next week or so, I'll be listening to that, and I'd advise others to do that too. The LFC Foundation has increased its support by 47% over that time period, from supporting 83,000 people to 122,000, and the charity contributed 5 million into the local economy, which obviously is classed as the Liverpool City region, and delivered more than 32 million in health benefits over the 12-month period. For every £1 spent, LFC Foundation created a social value return of 13. So, often mocked by those of the blue persuasion that they're the people's club, we do our fair bit. We do look after the community. We do, help those on our own doorstep as much as people tend to overlook it. We are contributing and helping to those in a less fortunate position, and credit has to really go to the club and the LFC Foundation for that support and help that they give to people in and around the city. And
we attract the people into the city because they want to watch us. Like, I mean, Everton fans are like, they think it's like a badge of honour that there's only Everton fans are only the people who live in Everton, well, in Liverpool, in certain, even sometimes certain parts of Liverpool and North Wales. They think that's a badge of honour to be only liked by locals, but we're loved by locals, but we're loved by people from all around the world. As we've said so many times, we're just glad we're fortunate enough to have been born on the doorstep and to be right, in Liverpool. We can get to games and stuff. There's no issue with travelling and things like that. But the thing is, everyone who comes to a game that's from further afield, they're the people who are bringing money into the economy. And it's not all going in the club shop. There's plenty of them who are willing to help out and give money to good causes in the area, aren't there? So,
Oh, yeah.
Don't be negative.
Where would they be without us is probably the best. It's probably the best way to sum that up. If as much as they mock and they have a dig and something, like they'd be nothing without us, and that's not being big headed. Like we are the bigger brother in this city. We're the one bringing more eyeballs is probably the best way to say it. And I think they just need to focus on their own business, and if that's just staying in the league by fair means or foul again, I suppose as long as they've got 2 cup finals a season with one left to play against us, then that'll be all they can focus on for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think also on the finances there was an amazing figure you spotted. The Liverpool are the first club in the Premier League to reach 8 million YouTube subscribers, which is it's crazy. They've got over 40 million on both Instagram and Facebook. No mention of X, because I don't think anyone cares about X the way they used to now. 173 million cumulative social followers across its men's and women's social media channels. There's there's so much in here. There's also the reminder that the new stand work is going to have a positive impact soon on attendances and match day revenue, because more people can come in. We're already seeing that being filled up now. So, that's going to start making a difference as time goes on. And there's somewhere in it was how many fans that Liverpool have. It was 7. So like an average broadcast audience per season of more than 724 million, which, even divide that out by however many games are on TV, the ground's never going to be big enough, is it?
No, it's just crazy levels of maths to try and figure out. I think what it does say is we're a big club, bigger than most.
Yeah, we're not a little club. Even Everton don't think of themselves as a little club. I'm not having a go. They're just not as big as us.
No, sorry, I was on mute there. No, as I say, we're the big boys in the city. We run the River Mersey. They can play in their pond, can't they? Yeah,
absolutely. They're going to be right near a pond, but it's going to be the Mersey. So we'll see. I think we'll probably leave it there. We've had plenty to talk about, as we expected. We've not even had a chance to talk about the next game, but I think it's good just to have a look back and reflect in the glory of the last few days, especially last weekend. It just feels like everything's rosy when, I don't know, someone had said to me at the start of the season that you're going to do a podcast in the middle of Feb or at the end of Feb, when you've got like 14 first-team players missing or whatever the figure is. It might be more, I've lost track. I'd have been thinking doesn't sound good, does it? These are going to be some miserable podcasts, but it was exactly the opposite. I think I tweeted the other day, it might have been last night, what a time to be a Red. It's an amazing time to be a Red. As we've said before, we're always supportive of this club. Whatever's going on, good and bad, support the club through the bad times, help the club through the bad times, and then, when it's the good times, the clubs are carrying us through, and, just great. Whatever's going on in your life, you've got this now to look at and enjoy the game, enjoy the football, and enjoy whatever's coming next. Obviously, plenty more games to play. Back to league stuff, back to Europa stuff. Still got an FA Cup match ahead against Manchester United, but that's all in the future. I think we've got plenty to enjoy for now, which is we don't even scratch the surface of all the good things about this last week. So maybe we'll carry some into next week if we remember. But as always, thanks to Jay, thanks to you for listening, and we will be back soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at anfieldindex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.